In the eyes of others, it's just a carton of milk. But to him, it's the key to breaking out. Peel off the outer layer of the milk carton and you'll find a thin layer of wax paper. Mike carefully removes it and washes it clean. When he goes out, he discreetly sticks this wax paper on the keypad lock of the cell door. This way, when the guard enters the code, their fingerprints will be imprinted on the 4 keys. He just needs to peel off the paper, look at those 4 keys, and he can deduce the 24 possible combinations. Then it's just a matter of trying each code one by one. But how can he reach the keypad? Mike crumples up some toilet paper into small balls and keeps squeezing toothpaste into them, making soft, sticky spheres. He then wraps them in paper, kneads and compresses them, turning them into a big, sticky ball. One day, when the guard is unlocking his handcuffs, he quietly stuffs the ball into the keyhole of the small cell window. This way, even if the guard locks the window, he can easily push it open. Next, he just needs to reach his hand out through the window and try the codes one by one. At most, it'll take 24 attempts to succeed. But to avoid the cameras, he needs to know the guard's movements in advance. Mike has always relied on listening to the sound of doors opening and closing to judge. Every afternoon, after the guard brings him back to his cell, they leave to chat. During this time, the surveillance room is empty for a full 7 minutes. This is his breakthrough point. What to do after escaping the cell? Don't underestimate Mike. He knows full well that a successful prison break requires 3 key elements: familiarity with the prison's routines, knowledge of the internal layout, and outside assistance. He has already mastered the first 2. As soon as he entered the prison, he carefully observed the entire facility and discovered that the only weak point is the fire station next door. The problem is, only the solitary confinement cell is close to that side. So he deliberately provokes and seriously injures the prison bully, successfully getting himself locked in solitary. Once he cracks the code and opens the door to the dark cell, he crawls through the ventilation duct leading to the fire station. While the guards are distracted, he quietly exits through the vent, arrives at the fire station, and quickly changes into the spare firefighter uniform there. This is where the third element comes into play: outside help. He had already arranged with his partner to detonate a car at this specific time. When there's a fire alarm, the fire truck immediately sets out. Mike hides under the truck and rides with it to the scene. Amidst the chaos, he crawls out from under the vehicle, gets into the getaway car, and successfully escapes. However, Mike is not a criminal. He's a prison escape expert hired by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. His job is to test the security defenses of top prisons across the country. He uses a fake identity to infiltrate prisons and relies on his own abilities to break out. In 7 years, he has challenged 15 high-security prisons, and not one has been able to hold him. Until one day, the CIA approaches him. They mention a mysterious prison that holds villains unwelcome in any country. The CIA wants to test its security, but they can't even confirm where this prison is located. The mission is extremely dangerous, but Mike still readily agrees. To be safe before setting out, his assistant implants a miniature GPS into his arm. But as soon as he steps outside, Mike is captured. The attackers are unusually vicious. They first stun him with a taser, then seem to have anticipated it and directly use tools to dig out the GPS from his arm. Finally, they inject him with a sedative, knocking him unconscious. When Mike opens his eyes again, he finds himself in an unfamiliar prison. And when he sees the sight, he's completely shocked. The cells of the entire prison are actually made of transparent glass. Every move of the prisoners, including going to the bathroom, is in full view. The cells are suspended in the air, so digging a tunnel to escape is completely impossible. The interior is fully enclosed, without a ray of sunlight penetrating in. The number of guards far exceeds the inmates, and they are fully equipped and wear masks to avoid private communication with prisoners. There are hundreds of surveillance devices, as well as circular surveillance cameras that can rotate at any time to monitor anyone they want. As a prison escape expert, Mike can tell at a glance, this place is almost impossible to escape from. He can't help but find the warden and complain, believing that this mission is too extreme. He decides to abandon the task and immediately says the exit code, "I love KFC." However, the warden pretends not to hear and instead locks him up separately. It turns out this warden had long been in cahoots with someone who hates Mike and wants to trap him in this prison forever. But Mike won't easily admit defeat. Even if hope is slim, he still wants to find a way to escape. But to do this, he needs a partner. Just as he's about to speak, a man named John actively approaches him and asks if he needs help. Mike doesn't hesitate to say that he wants to go to solitary confinement because in the past few days he has already seen clearly that there's no way to start from the regular cells. So the two cooperate in a fight, and Mike is sent to solitary as he wished. But unexpectedly, the solitary cell here is too terrifying. A dozen high-power sun lamps are all on, and the high temperature is so hot that it's almost unbearable. Mike endures the extreme pain and carefully observes the structure of the room. When he comes out, he's already exhausted. John asks him if he found anything, and Mike doesn't directly answer. He only says, "If you can get me a piece of metal, I can take you out of here." John immediately decides to go all out. He runs to the warden and lies that he has important information, but takes the opportunity to humiliate him. The warden flies into a rage and orders the guards to punish him with waterboarding. John nearly drowns to death, but in the end, he successfully snatches the drain cover that only the interrogation room has. After completing the task, he hands the cover to Mike. Seeing his determination, Mike confesses that he's an expert at breaking out of prison and tells him the secrets of the prison structure he has observed. It turns out that the buildings of this prison are almost entirely vertically arranged, meaning it's likely built underground. He also discovered the sound of water coming from below the solitary cell and guessed that it's a drainage pipe, which very likely conceals a passageway. Next, the plan is to return to solitary and take action. John is responsible for stirring up trouble, while Mike tightly grips a piece of bread. Sure enough, a fight attracts the guards, and everyone is locked in the bright solitary cell. As soon as they enter, Mike takes out the drain cover John gave him and uses the reflected light to shine on the rivets. Wait a minute, how can it reflect light? It turns out he had previously polished the cover with toothpaste. A few minutes later, the 100-degree heat causes the steel rivets to expand by 0.03 cubic centimeters, and the rivets suddenly pop out. Mike quickly removes it, then repeats the same operation on the other 3 rivets. When he's done, he stuffs the bread into his mouth while signaling John, who starts shouting. The warden is indeed attracted, and Mike immediately gets up, sticking the chewed bread on the camera to block its view. He then lifts the floorboard and crawls down. He reaches the underground space and climbs up along the drainage pipe. When he reaches the top and opens the cover, he's surprised to find that this is not the imagined underground, but a boundless sea. He's on the deck of a giant cruise ship, surrounded by guards. Jumping into the sea is almost impossible. He can only go back. Although he knows the location, he can't think of a way to escape. Worse, the warden discovers the rivets and realizes Mike's escape attempt. He starts having his men torture Mike. As soon as Mike closes his eyes, the guards bang on the cell, not letting him rest. When he's so tired that he passes out, the guards rush in and beat him viciously, waking him up. As a result, Mike is in a daze all day and often faints for no reason. Before long, he's sent for a doctor's examination. Even the doctor shakes his head upon seeing him. However, even so, he still hasn't been broken. As soon as they stop torturing him, he immediately starts planning a new method. So during daily meal times, he secretly makes escape tools under the dining table. Using 2 lenses, a ballpoint pen, a piece of cardboard, and a glass tube, he assembles a device called a sextant, which can be used to determine direction. Then they win over a new teammate and have him pretend to make a deal with the warden to gain the opportunity to go on deck to pray. As soon as he reaches the deck, the teammate uses the sextant to calculate the position. After Mike gets the data, he immediately determines that the ship is in the windless horse latitudes. He also notices that the water in the ship's toilets flows counterclockwise, thus determining that they are in the northern hemisphere. Combined with the hot and humid climate, he deduces that the ship is very likely near the coast of Morocco in Africa. The next step is to find someone to help them get the message out. Mike thinks of the doctor, who always looks sympathetic, so he has John stab himself to take this opportunity to find the doctor to stitch up the wound. Soon after, he pretends to be sick and finds the doctor to vomit. Sure enough, the doctor's compassion outweighs his fear, and he decides to help them. He sends a plea for help to John's men, and everything is ready. The escape plan officially begins. That night, the warden sees Mike tapping on the wall. He secretly listens and decodes the content. There will be a riot in C Block the next morning. The warden immediately dispatches triple the manpower to C Block to deal with it. But this is actually a trap set by Mike. He wants to draw away the guards. This way, there are only 2 guards left in his area. Then the inmates stir up a battle between 2 big gangs, and gunshots ring out. The guards open fire from above, but are quietly knocked down by Mike, who has climbed up. The few men quickly climb up and head straight for the deck through the pipes. Unexpectedly, the gate on the deck is an electronic lock that can't be forced open. Mike decides to personally go to the power room to cut off the electricity, which means he must stay behind. Without hesitation, he goes down to the power room and cuts off the power by operating the computer. Sure enough, John's side successfully opens the door, reaches the deck, and the helicopter arrives on time to pick them up. Just as John approaches the plane, the enemy swarms in. But he refuses to board because his brother has not yet escaped. He dismantles the machine gun, and his eyes instantly turn cold. He transforms into a cold-blooded killing machine. On the other side, the warden blocks the power room, certain that Mike has nowhere to escape. Strangely, he searches the room but can't find a trace of him. Just as his men restore power, he suddenly hears the sound of the water tank starting up. The warden's smile instantly freezes. He actually forgot to check the detail of the water tank. At this moment, Mike is hiding in the tank. As the water flushes, he is sent into the sea. When he surfaces, John happens to spot him and picks him up. The warden then rushes to the deck and sees Mike climbing up the ladder. He immediately opens fire. At the last moment between life and death, John throws down a gun. Mike accurately catches it and fires a few shots at the oil tank. The warden looks down, and before he can open his mouth, he is engulfed by the flames of the explosion. Sometime later, they arrive at the coast of Africa. A mysterious woman comes to greet John. It's the beauty who had hired Mike. She's actually John's daughter, and all of this was arranged to rescue her father. No wonder as soon as Mike entered the prison, John immediately came to find him to join forces. It turns out everything had long been planned. Mike smiles faintly, not saying much. The one he really wants to deal with is the former partner who framed him. A few days later, this partner wakes up and finds himself locked in a shipping container, and the container is sailing with a giant ship. By the time the ship docks, he'll most likely be dead. At the end of the story, Mike retires successfully. After watching this tough guy's legendary prison break, one can't help but sigh. So true power is knowledge after all.